Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and I'm going to keep on doing this Kerrelyn Sparks series because I was just having a good time and I kind of have been reading through them. Although there's going to be a skip in the middle because the library doesn't have an ebook version of this and I'm going to have to get a hold of a physical copy, and I'd already posted the other one and anyways, these are going to be out of order just because I'm kind of going as I go with them, but I was having a good time. Anyways, so this book, this is, of course, the sequel to the last one, How to Tame a Beast in 7 Days, and I gotta be honest with you, my favorite thing in this book is actually a nun. So let's, the thing about this book, this series of books is you have this world building, the embrace, that is, if you're born on a particular day of the year, you automatically get X-Men-like superpowers, entirely unpredictable, yada yada. The so-called Sorcerer is just one of the embraced, and he has a superpower that allows him to, like, basically create wind. So he's kind of like Storm of the X-Men if she was only able to do wind. Anyways, there's a whole thing. He is the prince of a country that somebody else took over the throne and killed the royal family, and he had to flee and is the lost prince that people mostly think is dead, but there isn't any proof because, well, hey, he's still alive. And he went off and became a pirate and has been going around, you know, attacking the navy and whatnot of the bad king who deposed his family, and, you know, so on and so forth. Our heroine is one of the 5 young women raised on the same convent as the girl in the first book, and this one also doesn't know anything about sex. But the thing in this book that I truly enjoy is that Brigitte, the young woman from this, she and the other 4 are sailing to meet with the 5th one, because the 5th one has wound up married to the king of this country and is having her first child, so they're going to be there to, you know, be there for the birth and so on. And they're crossing the ocean when it turns out someone has become aware that the long-lost princess of Turin is on the ship. Brigitte had no idea she was a princess. They basically tell her because, hey, everybody's here to kidnap the princess of Turin. And it's like, oh, you tell me now when people show up to kidnap me. Thank you. That's very helpful. Anyways, she gives herself up to the pirates because they're pretty sure that there's no way they can stand against the pirates, and she wants to keep everybody safe. The Mother Superior of the convent where they were raised sends along one of her nuns who has sort of been helping chaperone the trip because, you know, it's young women in a pseudo-medieval place. They need chaperones. So she sends along Sister Fallon, and Sister Fallon goes with Brigitte, and they climb on board the ship. And Sister Fallon is possibly the most entertaining thing in this book because she seems to react throughout, like, the entire first half of the book to absolutely everything by accusing people of being about to ravish her and Brigitte. And I get it, you know, pirates have this kind of thing. Now, let's be clear, ravish is one of those odd words that has semi-negative connotations, because ravish is kind of like a much more polite or delicate or something way of saying rape. And, you know, rape, bad thing, not saying otherwise. But the fact of the matter is that ravish is a term that has sort of developed a wibbly kind of fine line definition that is a little bit like so-called rape fantasy. Now, the thing about rape fantasy, of course, is that the fantasy is not actually being raped, because the thing about a fantasy is you are in control of every aspect of that fantasy, and therefore all of the things that are the problem with rape, like the lack of consent, aren't an issue, because if you are in control of everything, then you are in control of how much consent there is. And since it's your fantasy, you are internally consenting to the thing you're fantasizing about. But anyways, ravishment is sort of, yes, it's rape, but in romance novel jargon, it has become that sort of odd, fine-lined thing that can occasionally be described as forceful sex with somebody who knows she probably shouldn't be having sex with this person because he is her captor, but oh my goodness, isn't he handsome and romantic? It's a very, very fine line thing, and so I suspect that this author is partly using ravish because it's a more delicate, because rape is a very blunt word, it's a hard word, and ravish is less blunt, but also because, of course, ravish gets used for that sort of, forceful, we are pretending that I am forcing you even though I'm not actually sort of thing. So she uses ravish a lot. And the thing about Sister Fallon is that she sort of reacts in a way that you start to facepalm about it, because they get on board and she's like, Brigitte, we must be careful lest they ravish us, and you're like, okay, yeah. And then they, and they're like, okay, and we're going to put you two into separate cabins, and she's like, no, we cannot be parted because you may ravish us. Okay, you can stay in the same one. You only have the one bed, but that's fine. And then, somebody knocks on the door, and a 10-year-old boy pokes, and she's like, what? They're knocking upon the door. They must mean to ravish us. And Brigitte's like, they were planning to do something. They probably wouldn't be knocking. And then the 10-year-old boy who's on board the ship, because they basically were taking the pirates, who are more or less good guys, took him away from his abusive uncle. And he pokes his head and he's like, so, they asked me to bring you some food. Why? Because they want us well fed before they ravish us? Yeah, and he'll come back later. Here, have a cup of water. And then you're going to ravish us? They bring them, extra clothes, and she's like, no, we must not change into these clothes. It is a prelude to ravishing. And, wow, I wonder why she left the clothes behind, Brigitte comments. Probably because she had terrible memories of being ravished. Sister Fallon spends so much of that first book basically assuming anything anybody does is a prelude to ravishment, until it sort of hits the point of utter ridiculousness, because you look at it and she'll be, saying things like, you want me to climb up the ladder because you want to ravish me. It's like, no, that's how we get you onto the boat, is if you climb up the ladder. You climb up the ladder because you can't get onto the boat if you don't. The whole thing, it's just this endless and very, very amusing insistence, because you get the fear, but after a certain point, any sort of concern is going to wear off, simply because everything that they do is that, and it's sort of and it sort of gets to the point where you're left saying, yes, he walked out and closed the door behind him because he was walking out of the room. No, clearly he closed the door behind it. He left because he's going to ravish us. Sister Fallon insists on getting a butter knife because she's like, I will use this to defend you with my life, Brigitte. And it's like, it's butter knife, Sister Fallon. It's a butter knife. I'm pretty sure that pirates who spend a lot of their time pillaging their way through the somewhat illegitimate King of Turin's forces will not be stopped by a nun with a butter knife. But, she's like, you have this scene where, the butter knife falls on the floor, and the captain of the ship that they're on watches as she pounces on the knife and scampers over and stuffs it under her pillow, and he's like, you don't need to hide silverware in your bed. Because she's not subtle, she's just like, haha, I have stolen away this weapon of a butter knife. Sister Fallon is a delight in this book. The rest of this is more, troping tropes to the troping max. It's the good-hearted Robin Hood sort of pirate, and the long-lost princess who finds her way, and the long-lost prince who manages to regain his throne and win the hand of the beautiful princess, and yada, yada, yada. It's all very, very tropey. But Sister Fallon, I delight in her. I endlessly delight in the fact that she is so over and hyper concerned about everything all the time, and just, I mean, she is rationally, she does seem to be more rational than Brigida, in that Brigida is not perhaps as concerned about being kidnapped by pirates than maybe one would think she ought to be, but Fallon makes up for it by basically assuming that everything is being done with the end result intention of ravishment. Like, she can't think of any other possible motivations, even knowing that Brigida is, like, a princess. She still doesn't, like, it's like she completely dismisses any notion that, like, a princess could be held for ransom. Because, princesses, worth a lot of money. You could probably hold them for ransom. No, this is clearly just a matter of him bodily ripping all of our clothes off and climbing on top and doing scandalous things. Given the kind of book that this is, the scandalous things are more pleasant than not. And yes, they do wind up having scandalous things happen, and delightfully, she does not in fact know anything about how sex works, and so there's that. It is awkward. It is very awkward, but man, did I have a good time. I was so sorry after Sister Fallon fell in love with the other guy and, like, stopped assuming that everybody was going to ravish her at every single second. I was so sorry, because that was, like, the best part of the book. But, it's a good time. Has a happy ending. And then after this, there's a book that I won't have access to until the library finally spits it up. So, I think that's all that I'm going to say about this, because, I've really been on a tear of just amusing myself with what I read. So, that is everything, and I will see you all next week.